I'm Tom Vessel.
I'm Camilla.
And I'm Mike DeLisio.
Today we're taking a look at Tidal Blades 2 Rise of the Unfolders, which I think is I'm going to say it right off the bat, I think it's not a great title because I like Tidal Blades a lot. Mm-hmm. It's an interesting game. This is such a different game that I feel that somebody coming into it would be like, well, I haven't played the first one. I don't want to play the second one. I almost think it should be Tidal Blades real small and then another title. Like, this is another game. This is essentially a dungeon crawl or an adventure game. Mm-hmm. And the first one was a dice manipulation game.
Right, yeah. A competitive, co-op. I mean, so very different. No, I do agree that there can be some confusion. I think for me, kind of saving grace on that argument is it was planned like this. I mean, they even talk about it in the first campaign for Tidal Blades 1. But unfortunately, we call them both Tidal Blades, and so I can see where it would cause confusion and perhaps apprehension to play if you haven't played the first one. It doesn't matter other than the story. It is a consecutive story, and this is building off the story that was presented in the first one.
All right, well, let's take a look at how it plays, and we'll be right back. I'm not going to go over every rule here in Tidal Blades. I'm just going to give you kind of an idea of how it plays. You're going to be playing through a scenario book. Scenario book has various chapters, although they occasionally diverge. It will give you a background story, and then you'll often have battles that you're going to come into. And so this one in particular is going to be using both of these map books. So there are two map books in this game, and when you open them both up, they show you the town. This will show up after, I think, Scenario 3. You will be able to go into town and do different actions, and this will help you level up your character. But after that, you will have the map here. And this is the map that you will be fighting on and moving on, although occasionally the map might change. And so there's going to be various maps. I'm not going to spoil all of them for you. But you can see that different maps are going to show up and different things are going to happen over the course of the game. There's even a smaller scenario book, if you need it, that might add some more sections to your maps. The heart of this game is the characters that are in it. There are 6 different characters that you can play. It shows you the different complexity of each of them as you play them. And you can see this one's a complexity of 3 and 4, but they're mostly pretty easy to play. When you take a character, let's say I take Dust here, and you take one of these sheets, and there's several sheets so you can play through multiple times. That's going to keep track of a lot of different stats. But you're also going to have your player board down here. So on this player board, you're going to have these stoppers, which are going to show you how much spirit, focus, and your resilience, which is your maximum health. So her resilience here, for example, is 9. So I put the stoppers on the 10. And this can actually go down as she takes hits 3 times. Although each time it drops a level, you will take some wound cards. These levels are determined by this here. This shows you your maximum levels, but you can spend experience points at various times over the game to increase in levels, to make your resilience, focus, spirit, and synergy go up, which is another term that you'll use for cards. So speaking of cards, each player has their own deck of cards. They're going to start with a power card that will go in the middle of their board. As the game progresses, you have the possibility to get other power cards, and you can pick which one you want to start in the middle of your board each turn, and then the rest get shuffled in your deck depending on how high your synergy is. That's what synergy is used for. You're going to shuffle these cards, and on your turn, you're going to be playing a card from your turn. In each round of the game, everybody is going to be playing these cards, even the bad guys. There's an initiative track, and on this track, you'll have tokens for each of the characters and monsters that are in the game. Each monster that you play against will have their own little deck of cards, and they're going to be randomly playing one from this deck each round. And you'll be picking a card from your hand and playing that card. You're going to look at the top of the card, and it's going to show you how your initiative marker moves. So if the mud crabs play this, their initiative marker moves up 1, and if Dust plays this, her initiative marker will move down 1, which will change the order of how things go. On a hero's turn, they are simply going to take the card that they played, so you play it here for initiative purposes, and then you can play it on any spot you want to on the board, and then you can activate the row or the column that you put that card in. So in the case I put it here, I can move up my spirit twice, although my spirit, for example, here is completely full. They start at half of your max. So let's say it started here. I can move it up twice. I get to make a level 1 attack against somebody else within range 2, and I get 2 shields. You're going to have shells over here. You have 6 shells that are moving around, and so I can put them here, and that will help block enemy attacks. And at the end of your turn, your shells will move to your quantum reservoir, where you can use them. I can spend 2 to reroll a dice roll. I can spend 3 to gain 1 spirit, 1 focus. And then once I spend them here, they go back here. So it's this constant cycling action. And as the game goes by, you'll get more special abilities that you can put into these slots. So there's various things you get on board. This will give you an extra die and an attack. I might run this one here because this gives me a 1 attack and a 2 attack, but since they both have chains on them, I can add those together. When you attack somebody, you will roll dice, and each red hit symbol that you roll is going to do 1 hit. If there are yellow symbols on a die, you can spend a focus to turn all the yellow symbols on 1 die into red hits. And then the blue symbols might be hits, or they might be negative. They might subtract from your hits, depending on if you have advantage or not. Like, let's say you're doing a range attack, but you're next to somebody, you'll be at disadvantage, so that would work against you. If there's 2 people attacking the same person, you have advantage. So you're going to keep playing these cards onto the board. This one here in the middle has a power that says if you roll 4 more hits in an attack, you get 2 shields. If you ever activate a row that's all cards, though, then those will be discarded at the end of your turn, and then you will just keep playing your cards. The monsters are going to do the same thing, but they're going to do more programming, attacking, moving towards the nearest person. When they roll the blue symbols, it might have special things that they do. These mud crabs sometimes are armored, so it will take an extra hit to take them out. Now, what I just showed you is a good chunk of the game. The enemies are going to be attacking you. You'll be attacking them. Each enemy comes with a card that will show how that enemy works, their starting hit points. If they're a boss, so there's standard and mutant enemies. They will be attacking you, by the way. When enemies attack you, they do some set damage, but you will roll these modifier dice, which might even subtract from the damage when they hit you, like this one here. Although the mutant ones will roll this much more fearsome die, which you're going to get hit every time that they hit you. There's also other things that can happen. Whenever you kill enemies, you'll pull a token from this bag here, which will put various things on the board, which you can pick up, including fruit, which you can use to heal, or save later on to purchase more things to upgrade. And there's so much that will happen at the end of a scenario. You're going to get rewards. There is giant decks of cards that are included with the game. There are wounds you get during the game. You get too many wounds, you will take basically these disadvantage cards. I might have a sliced tendon or skittish that I have to work with that card in my deck. But there are more cards for each of the characters, and then there are cards that aren't ascribed to any character, but they'll show up in town, and you might want to buy them to make your decks bigger. You even have ways to cull cards from your deck. On your character sheet, you have these path advancements. As the game progresses, you have these minor goals that you might be trying to accomplish, and you move up on these paths, which will give you access to more cards. Also allowing you to check off various skills here, which will make you stronger and be able to do special abilities. On the other side, you keep track of your fame, which will unlock. This is basically the same for the whole party, but will allow you to do various things. You'll keep track of stuff here, your experience, your hit points, how many wounds you get, the battle scars, etc., etc. So there's a lot going on, and more special rules will be opened up as you go through each of the scenarios. I don't want to spoil it for you. There's also a separate box you can get that has upgraded components and miniatures for all the characters, which are very, very nicely put together. So hopefully that gives you an idea of how the game plays.
So this game has, it is a Druid Cities game, and the first Tidal Blades had really good components, other than the ridiculous size box. This one...
Strange size box, yeah, super strange.
This one has amazing components across the board. If you get the upgraded miniatures, they are fantastic. You don't need them. But all the cards, all the art, the only thing that's off, and this is only if you get the miniature pack, are the colored bases that fit on the monsters do not fit on properly. They pop off all the time.
So if you can stretch them out a little bit, and then you'll have no problems. If you just take 2 seconds and stretch them, then they're completely fine. But you do need to know that, because that took me probably 2 play sessions, 2 sessions into
stretch,
this.
You mean just grab it and pull them?
Just put your 2 thumbs in the middle and just kind of, stretch them out just a little bit, hold it for like 5 seconds, and then they never pop off again.
Oh, well, there you go.
One of us figured that out. Did Mike know?
I figured it out on my own. Yeah, they were close, so I figured with the material it wouldn't be too tough to stretch them a bit. That's what I did.
I also want to say, I am so tired of generic dungeon crawl type things. I love the story of Tidal Blades. I'm not sure I understand all this unfolding, folding stuff, whatever, timey-wimey-ness.
Nexus.
But I do love the story. I love all the creatures. They're not just anthropomorphic animals. The turtle looks like a turtle. And it's cool. It's interesting backstories. The characters are also not archetypes. Like I'm playing the gator, and who's a tank, right? But he also has lots of ranged attacks. So he's not just a warrior. I don't know. I think that's cool.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that this has one of my favorite worlds that has been created in board games, period. I feel like this could easily be a movie. I think that they could make a TV series. Like, it's that fully realized, and these characters feel fully formed. So I'm with you, Tom. I really love the setting of Tidal Blades, and this particular game, I think, makes that shine more than you even could in a worker placement dice manipulation game like the first one. This allows you to really immerse yourself in that world.
Yeah, I agree. And I want to say, I love, like you were saying, Tom, how the dungeon crawler, for a dungeon crawler, it is a unique theme. I find it to be so approachable as well for people outside the hobby that like those lighter themes. Maybe they're trying to figure out what kind of games they like or something like that. And I love dungeon crawls, but I don't want to show everyone Oathsworn because that's not in their taste. This is just such a bright, lively world that I find it to be very approachable, even outside the hobby. I mean, for the campaign that I'm going through right now, I'm playing it with someone who is not a hobby gamer at all. And there was a little bit additional learning curve. And also, I mean, she's pretty intelligent, so could figure it out, but it was very approachable to her, and she was drawn to it because of the world specifically. And I love that it's a category that is so dense with games. This one stands out for that.
I also want to applaud them for the way that you go through this. It's not a single scenario. Know that you're that going in. It's an entire campaign. But the idea of having those 2 books form a map, Be Still My Heart, I love that so much. And I even love so much, I mean, it happens this is not a spoiler, but like, you flip a page and the scenario changes, and you're like, now there's a new part of the map. And that's works really well. Every dungeon crawler in the world should do this. That's just my thing. But also the book does a good job. As you go through the campaign, it is saying, now we'll introduce this. Now we'll introduce this. It doesn't overwhelm you at first, because the first thing you need to learn is that combat system. And man, oh man, what a fantastic system. One of my favorites I've ever seen in any combat game. The card row com thing, I love it.
It's such a puzzle, it feels really good. And we've seen puzzles in Gloomhaven, things like that. What card to use when to combo off each other. It has all of that, but then also this little spatial puzzle of placing your cards down and trying to combo your attacks together. When do you go for that big attack, which is going to clear off the whole row on your Nexus? You want to time that perfectly. And if you do it right, you can have like 2 huge ones in a row, if you get it set up right. But sometimes you just have to have that one extra movement, so you can't quite set it up perfectly. I just think it's so great to have a puzzle, a different form of a puzzle. It's not just in the card selection and using the cards, but it's also in the card placement. That adds such a unique layer to that decision process.
Yeah, that Nexus board it's really the meat of the game, the heart of the game, and the fact that it works so well kind of gives you an impression of how the game is as a whole. It's got the perfect, I think, level of simplicity, because you've got, this 3x3 grid. You're not overwhelmed with options and choices, but you are able to potentially pull off some really, really satisfying turns, combo-y things by linking your actions together. It's simple to explain, it's simple to understand, it's intuitive, but it's very dynamic.
Yeah. Now, I have not read any designer diaries. The game clearly has inspirations from other games. There's a bit of Gloomhaven with the idea of here's a task that you need to try to accomplish over the game, which will help you level up. There's the, hey, you can spend this resource to change these hits on the dice. I mean, these symbols, 2 hits, things like that. And the initiative track, the card that you're using, changing your initiative, but also being the thing. But it just feels full of freedom to me in, hey, I played this card, but that doesn't lock my action in. It depends where I put the card. I still have so many spots in the board where to put the card. And then that combined with just the rolling of dice is exciting, but there's no you miss.
Right.
Well, I mean, there could be, right? You could do things, but there's just ways to manipulate them. You want to keep I'm just going to say yellow and red tracks up, right? You want to keep those tracks up so that you can manipulate dice a lot. And I find that every turn you're doing something interesting.
Right, and it never feels like a wasted turn. That's something that I hound on a lot. I hate sometimes in cooperative games where you plan stuff out and you feel like you wasted a turn because somebody else got there first, or the card you selected didn't match with somebody else. If nothing else, you change your placement, you adapt, do something a little bit different, maybe build up those resources. Maybe your initiative, I didn't realize I was going to be going first. I said I was going to be going faster, but we didn't realize they were now bumping up and going first. I'm going to change and adapt. So you have, like you keep saying, that flexibility of that you never waste a turn. Even if you're just collecting resources, you know that's going to pay off dividends here in a turn or two, and it always does. I like that balance a lot.
I also just really quickly like the shell system, how the shells work. I think that's very clever. I think it's a neat way to handle blocking damage, and then they can go to the other section of the board. It's a way to make one component kind of have multiple uses, and it's such a clean system. I just really wanted to point that out as well. I really like how those shells work.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. And I think one of my favorite things about it is the way the one board is tracking all the baddies that are out there. You can have 5 or 6 baddies out at one point, and it's all on this one little slider scale that you're doing together. I love that, rather than it being 5 or 6 cards out there that each have damage and hit points, or hit points on the miniatures on the board. It's just such a clean board at all time. The board is simply a snapshot of what's going on, and everything else is managed very succinctly in their realms. Yours is on your board, and the baddie's on the baddie board. So while you have statuses, and you have all statuses and mitigation opportunities and all those kind of things that we love in dungeon crawlers, the way it's organized is very clean setup to where you can at a snapshot see everything that's going on. There's one card for the baddies. All of the crabs are going to act this way this turn. You see that coming up. Only thing that's going to change is when is it happening. I really find that to be very clean.
Yeah, and that's, again, a little similar to Gloomhaven with the one card, but keeping the track on that sideboard, other than the green and blue, they're a little confusing. I won't use the one green and turquoise if I can help it.
Right, unless I have all of them out. Yeah.
Unless they're all out. One thing I love about dungeon crawl adventure type games is the leveling up system, and this game is phenomenal in that you, after every mission, are getting something, whether it's more cards for your deck, or you get to go to town and buy more cards for your deck, and or items that you can put on the cards, or there's ways to upgrade on tracks. I don't know. I haven't played as far as you guys, but I don't think there's ever a mission where you don't get something afterwards. And that feels really good.
Right. No, it definitely feels good. And on the flip side of that, I do like that you are going to be taking scars and wounds as you go through. But there's also
I don't like that.
No, I like that. I think that there's something going on that it's bringing that balance. So you're not just wanting to complete the mission. There is a rating scale of how well you're doing. So of course, no, you don't want a battle scar or a wound or anything like that. But there's also ways to heal those as you go through the campaign. And so I like that. You're doing something, and sometimes you're just healing a wound because that's what you want to do. But anytime you go to town, you have 3 days. You get to do 3 things. It's just, there's a really good, once again, balance of good and bad that you're doing. It feels good to upgrade, but you also have to make those responsible choices sometimes for your future. So I think it's a really good balance with interesting decisions every time you go to town.
I also did want to say that I've been pushing back a lot recently about these campaign games that are just these huge sprawling opuses that you open the box, you're like, I'm never going to play through this. This is a game that I feel like has a reasonable length for a campaign, and it takes up a reasonable amount of table space. It does everything it can to make this type of a game actually approachable. You're not overwhelmed with cards and components. You're not overwhelmed with, a 70 game campaign. This is a game that I feel like, yes, I actually can play through a full campaign of this. And then there's extra stuff if I want to do that. So I wanted to point that out. If you're going to have a campaign game, which seems to be very much in vogue, it would be nice if you make it something like this that feels like it actually can be accomplished.
Absolutely, especially because as I'm going through, this second run with my second character, I love that I'm so excited to play a different character. I love this character that I'm building, but it's still approachable to think like I could do this again and go through as the crocodile, which I haven't done yet, or go through as the old turtle master. Can't think of his name to save my life right now. So you get attached and love your character, but because the campaign is approachable and realistic to complete in a reasonable amount of time, you get excited about seeing the other characters and jumping back in to explore the depths of the other ones. I think that's really cool, as well as you get near the end of the campaign, it will open up to where there are standalone scenarios. So it's a balance as well, where you can go in and just try a standalone scenario with one of the characters you haven't played. I think that's...
Sure, but you can't go and do that unless you've gone through the campaign.
I assume so, yeah.
Yeah.
Because you haven't unlocked it, and I don't think you won't have all the skills and the rules and that kind of stuff unless you've done it before.
I love much about this game. I'm giving it an 8.5. It is a game that I think me and my kids are going to go through and finish the whole thing because we are so far. We're playing it once a week now. Mike said it's not particularly long, and I agree, but it does feel epic. Mm-hmm. The big bosses come out. The very first big boss, I was like, well, we're just going to lose. But we did not. And it's beatable, right? We figured it out. The only thing I mentioned a few minor, tiny things. The only thing I don't love, and this is just a personal thing, is I don't love it's a game and it's a gamey thing that if you do well, the next mission's harder, and if you do poorly, the next mission's easier. We personally just play every mission straight without doing that either way because whatever. I mean, I get it. I guess you're like, well, this is too easy. Make it harder. I am already getting my butt kicked by millions of games. I just want to go through this one and do as well as I can. But I love, my kids like it too. After every game, you're like, ooh, new cards. Ooh, this. Oh, I checked off these. It just feels great. It's good for families. I wouldn't say it's super easy. Like, I wouldn't say this is my first dungeon crawl because there is a lot. I mean, the rule book is plenty long. And in the overview, not everything's good. You didn't see everything. There's just a lot going on. But it does a good job at walking you through it, and everything makes sense thematically as you do it. Except they sure look like cabbages rather than fruits. And we just call them cabbages because it does not look like a fruit. But everything else is cool. I really, really, really like this game. 8.5.
I'm coming in a little higher at a 9. My biggest kind of holdback on going all the way up to a 10 on this, honestly, is the rule book. I found the rule book was enough to get you confident to get to the table, but then once you get to the table, it's like, hold on, I have a question about that real quick. Wait, where was that? There were so many times like this needs an index. If it had an index in it, then I think that really would open up the range of who I would recommend this to. And I wouldn't quite call it a welcoming dungeon crawler, but I'd say it's a very approachable dungeon crawler. But be it as it may, I feel like an experienced gamer would need to be there. Like I said, with my friend that I'm going through the campaign, this is her first campaign, first dungeon crawler, whatever. I'm glad I'm there to kind of take that on. So that's kind of my little qualm with it is the rule book, I think, just needs a little bit more self-referential points and things like that to help get through it. But I absolutely love the gameplay. Like we talked about, I love the campaign. It's approachable. I love what you're doing. The way you're working your board and your Nexus board, the level up system is fantastic. It's so nice and relieving to have an upgrade system where it tells you the cards to go get, I'm playing Echo, go get ET1. Cool, I can go get that card. That doesn't necessarily go on my board because at the start of each campaign, maybe I have 4 of those cards and I can only put 2 of them in my deck, something like that. So it gives you options with only giving you one additional card. It's so easy, it's so smooth, it's so rewarding. It requires that high level of cooperation. I don't think there's just enough going on each person that it cuts down on that alpha gamer problem. Such a great world. Highly recommend the foreteller with it. It's so immersive just in the story, but also getting that little bit of atmosphere with it. Very, very well done. I am a huge fan of this one. I'm going to give it a 9.
I'm an 8.5. I think it's outstanding. And as I said, you know, you've got that kind of core, the Nexus board, which is really, really solid. The upgrades that we mentioned are really good. But to me, this is about getting into this world and feeling more fully realized. I love spending time interacting with the creatures in this world. So just an outstanding game. I don't want to belabor. You've both mentioned many of the great points of this game, but just a really, really cool dungeon crawl, completely unique from other dungeon crawls out there. 8.5.
Well, there you go, folks. That's Tidal Blades 2. I'm Tom.
I'm Camilla.
And I'm Mike.
And we're off to fight crabs and lobsters and... There's no lobsters. Something like that. Hey everybody, thanks for watching another video from the Dice Tower. Hey, you want to learn more about us, communicate with us? We have a Facebook group, we have a Discord channel, lots of different ways to get involved with the Dice Tower. You can find that in our Linktree link below. So just click that, it will take you and you can communicate with us on Facebook, join our Facebook groups. There's lots of cool things that you can find and become part of the Dice Tower. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Tom Vassell.